Hello, this is Mervin Mirsky. I'm interviewing Mervin Mirsky at his home on Willingdon Road in Ottawa. It's May 17th, 2001. Hi, Mervin.
Hi.
How would you like to give us a little bit of information about yourself? I understand your birthday was yesterday.
That's right.
And
16th of May, 1914.
so that makes you
67 years old.
67? Let me
Yeah.
think. Really? No.
Yes. Wait a minute.
No, 87, I think. There you go.
Forgive me. Yes, 87. Yeah.
Well, I know you look young, but...
Yeah. 13 more years and I'm going to be 100.
Oh, jeez. A whole century. That's something else.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how Mirsky's got to become here in Ottawa.
Yes.
How did they get here?
My grandfather, the Reverend Jacob Mirsky, was born in Russia on a village on the river Mir, and that's where the name Mirsky comes from, M-I-R-S-K-Y. And he decided to go into the clergy, and he found his way to the land in the United States. It was approximately 1892. In any event, he was a young clergyman, and he went through the schools, the clerical schools in Europe, and he arrived in New York, and there was a kind of a school assembly place where people wishing to go into any professions that they set up for immigrant people. And at the same time, the Ottawa Jewish community had attained a population of 26 families. So they decided they needed a clergyman. So they got two of the most prominent members of the community to go down to New York to this seminary where these immigrant young guys arrived and waiting for a job.
Now, do you remember who it was?
Yes, a chap named Bilski and a chap named Dover, and two elders. They're both long gone. In any event, they interviewed the people, and they interviewed my grandfather. They latched on to him, and they said that he's our boy. And so what they did, they purchased a Torah. A Torah is the scrolls of the Bible in rolls, and they use them in all the synagogue. The Torah is the most sacred book. That's the Old Testament. So they hired my grandfather, and they bought a Torah. And then they got back on the train, and it was an overnight trip. And my grandfather, he didn't want to desecrate it by laying it down. He sat up all night holding until they arrived in Ottawa. And that was the start of the Jewish community of Ottawa.
Now, was Jacob Mirsky, was he married? Did he have a wife when he came?
He was married and divorced in Europe.
So he was single when he came to North America?
Yeah, when he arrived here, he was single.
All right. Was it easy to come?
He went through 3 wives in total.
In total?
Before the final one, yeah.
Well, hard to please.
Yes.
Now, was it easy for him to leave Russia?
No, it wasn't at that time. There was a tremendous migration out of Europe to America, but particularly the Jews in areas where they were encountering racial prejudice. You've heard about the terrible pogroms that took place when in a large community they suddenly come out of church and decided to whack some Jews. And anti-Semitism was really rampant. Now, how the Jews got in approximately 2,000 years from the Mediterranean up to Russia, I shall never understand. No. But they migrated sort of steadily.
That's it. So was Jacob Mirsky able to get a visa and leave, or did he have to sneak out?
Well, he was very young. He was only 18 or 19. And there were some Jewish assistants in many of the big cities. There was a Jewish community, and they'd help a young guy along. And I think he got some help. But in any event, he arrived at this seminary in New York City. When he was there, the Ottawa Jewish community, as I say, sent our 2 guys down there to interview
So
and
he,
they interviewed quite a few, and they chose Jacob Mirsky.
right. So he sat up all the way.
Sat up all over
To way
that
to
toilet.
Ottawa.
That's right.
All right. So he, where did he settle?
I don't know the exact address, but it's on Cumberland Street, you know, in Lower Town.
Mhm.
That's what his original. And he was what you call a three-letter man.
What's that?
First of all, he'd do all the circumcisions for all the boys. So he left his mark on the whole Jewish community because he was the only guy doing it.
Okay.
And secondly, he was a teacher. They opened up a Jewish school, so he taught there. And the other function, of course, was he would perform all the funeral services. He was the only guy in town at the time. You know, going out to the cemetery and carry on the biblical blessings and so forth at each. And he probably performed that exclusively in Ottawa for about 10 or 15 years until they engaged some competition.
So there was no proper rabbi in the city of Ottawa at the
he
time?
arrived, no.
No. All right. Now, his duties, were they confined because he was not a proper rabbi? He was a reverend, but...
Yeah. No, because he was licensed, you might say, to do all the servicing. He'd conduct the service on the Sabbath. He'd conduct the services on the high holiday. He would, as I said, do the circumcisions, and he'd do the weddings.
Okay. And where was the synagogue at that time?
It was on King Edward Avenue.
So that building right near Rideau
Building's
Street
still there.
is still there.
Yeah.
And of course he was conducting Orthodox services.
Yeah.
And, oh, that's wonderful. All right. So he met his, which wife would it have been?
As I
All
say,
three of them here?
Went to 3 wives.
So that was in Ottawa then?
Yes, that was
Okay. And I understand he did a great deal for the community.
He really, well, he was the guy that the community needed, you see. He wasn't fantastically crazy about different things. He was a low-key, mild-mannered. I don't think he ever said a curse word. You know, that's kind of the guy he was. And I can remember going to my father, taking my brother Jack and I when we were 4 or 5 years old, and he had this house on Cumberland, and in the back, did I tell you this?
No.
He had a shed, and in that shed, he killed all the chickens for a Jewish community.
So you actually saw the shed that he
We
did?
went out there, and we would spellbound. That took a winter's night, 10 or 12 below zero, and he operated out of the back of his house. And in the back of his house, there were some big tanks, aluminum tanks, with pegs in it, you see. So a woman would get there with a chicken,
And it's
a
alive.
live chicken, hanging by her hand, and this is out the back, and she'd pay him 10 cents, and then he had a special knife. He'd take the chicken, pluck the feathers out right here, take that knife, and zip, and let it spurt out in the air, and then he'd hang the chicken in the tank by the feet till all the blood ran out.
Of course.
Now you can imagine a couple of kids like Jack and I watching that, 4 or 5 degrees below zero. You know, we were just in the state of
So how
bewilderment.
many chickens would he probably go
He'd
through?
probably 25 or 30 chickens at a session.
Wow.
And that's
That's amazing.
part of the way he made a living.
All right. Tell me
Now,
about...
he killed beef as well. I should
Oh, he
have told
did?
you. There was a slaughterhouse, a Jewish slaughterhouse run by a family by the name of Lakin. They bought and sold cattle. They had a special section for the Jewish cattle because they had to be killed in a certain way. And what to do, they had these stalls and with a front, and the cows had to move forward, and then they had a heavy block, and the bottom of the block was like this. So you fold the block over, and that kept the chicken, the cow like that.
Yes.
See, so we couldn't move. And then my grandfather would whip out this knife of his, zing, and just the blood would spurt in the air and everything else. You just imagine a couple of kids and they're
Better than any video game.
Oh, yeah. And,
For two boys.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he'd charge, I think it was 10 or 15 cents
All right.
to kill the chickens.
Incredible.
But he did he killed the cows too out of the special barn that they had out in the East End.
Yes. All right. Now you mentioned that he'd been married 2 or 3 times.
Jack and
3
I.
times. So no, your grandfather. Now, how many children came out of? Do you remember any of his names?
Yes, he had. He was married 3 times, and some of the children I don't know, but he had about 4 children and 1 stepson, and they all prospered. Like the stepson.
What was his name?
He was a doctor in Ottawa. His name was Nathan or something. In any event, he went to McGill, graduated in medicine, and he was so good when he practiced that he got an offer from the finest hospital in New York, and he went down there as an intern and lived his life there. He has had a family. We lost contact.
Yes. But was Nathan his first or his last name?
That was the first name.
His first name.
Yeah. His name was different. Well, he wasn't a Mirsky, you see.
Okay.
But that Mirsky, they produced the best bunch of doctors.
Who were the other 3 children?
There's my uncle, Dr. Sam Mirsky. Did you know about him? Well, let's start with him, because there was great genes in that family. Now, my grandfather arrived here from New York, and while he was here, they settled, and then he went down to New York, and he used to have these, almost like a cattle thing, these women waiting for husbands.
What year might that have been?
That would be 1890, 1891, you see.
Okay.
And he picked himself a wife. This is the second word. And he had the meekest, mildest guy you ever saw, but he went through wives. And in any event, the majority of the children, he produced some tremendous kids. My uncle, Dr. Sam,
Yes.
was one of the finest men, not his him I ever met. And Sam just came down to Ottawa, and he got a practice, and he got on the staff of the Civic, and then he became chief of medicine of the Civic, a nice young Jewish guy. Of course, Sam's son is Dougie Mirsky. Do you know Dougie? Have you met Dougie?
Yes. Yes. And he's an internist. Is
Yeah.
he not? And does a lot of
Great
work
guy, yeah. Apparently he's
with
a great
women, breast cancer.
Yeah.
He's a surgeon.
That's
Fine surgeon.
his specialty is women's breast cancer. Now, of all the people that really contribute, to relieve that awful plague of breast cancer in the women,
Yes.
I think it's one of the main causes of death for so many people. It's not the top cause, but in any event,
So Sam was
if you
a very
want to look at it to contributing to society, if you have a guy that saves lives, he does about 8 or 9
It runs in the
operations
family.
a day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a fine man.
Have you met him? Have you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Now, there's Sam, Dr. Sam
Yeah.
Mirsky, and then
See,
there was.
Sam was the youngest son,
Okay.
and he lived in our house more like he was adopted son.
Oh, I see. All right. So, his father was Jacob,
His father was Jacob, yes.
and his mother.
I shouldn't remember that name. I think it
Well,
was,
we can.
I think it was Sarah.
Okay.
Sarah.
Okay. And then there were brothers.
Now let's see.
First.
Jacob Mirsky had several sons. One of them had several wives, and one son, this fellow Joe, so he was brought up. He was my grandfather's second wife's son.
So was Joe?
Joe, she's going to give me his last name.
All right.
He practiced in Ottawa. He graduated from McGill.
So this is a doctor. He
The
became
doctor.
a doctor, and that's
And he graduated with the highest honors. Here's a poor little Ottawa guy. And
Yeah.
apparently he won every scholarship available. He was an incredible guy. He practiced in Ottawa for about 4 or 5 years. He got restless, went down to the States.
And that was the last year.
Oh, and he became famous, I'm telling you, as this guy. He hit in New York, and he was successful beyond description. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Yeah.
But you've lost touch. The family's lost touch with him.
If any of us ever went down to New York, we'd look him up.
Yeah.
But he was, chairman of the biggest hospital and success beyond measure.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. But now
Then
there
there
weren't
was-
any Mirsky genes because it was a second family. But he had 1 or 2 sons, and
So he was not actually Jacob's son. He adopted him.
he was not Jacob's son. That's right.
No, so he was one of his
He
wives.
married, and his wife had this
All
son.
right. Okay, I understand. All right. So there was
Great.
Joe,
Yeah.
and then there was who else was there?
Oh, there was
Sam.
my father, David, was the eldest.
David, yes. And when was he?
There was
when
a
was he
second
born?
son, Abe.
Okay.
And then there was the third son was Sam.
All right. When was David's birthday?
Who's?
You know, David's your father's.
I'm sorry to say that.
No, no. We don't.
Should you
check.
want me to find out?
Well, we can. I can find out. We'll find out later. Okay. So.
But
okay.
it was queer the amount of tremendous talent of these guys.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
they're
Sam
even-
became a wonderful
They
doctor.
came from these little immigrant towns in Russia.
Mhm.
Nothing, hardly, and they arrived in Canada as
Mhm.
immigrants,
Mhm.
and their parents spent every cent they had to educate them or put them through school, and they had such a successful history. And then, of course, the head of the family, the Reverend Jacob Mirsky, he was like a god in Ottawa. He was a kind, gentle man.
Well, I understand he used to be with people right into his home.
Oh yes,
Until they
if
got
a man
divorced.
arrived on the streets, a Jewish man in Ottawa, and they'd knock at his door, well, he'd put him in one of the bedrooms without any hesitation. And he did it a lot of times. There were a lot of people arrived from Europe in those days, and they had no place to go, and they wanted, by accident, they may have arrived in Ottawa or something, and they'd sleep for the first week or here.
So,
Because,
and none of them would be speaking English, I imagine.
no, but the Yiddish, they all spoke Yiddish.
So there was no communication problem then
No.
between them.
Yeah.
Now I understand he was also a bit of a matchmaker.
Yeah, I guess he was in a way. I guess.
Helping immigrants get established with jobs and meeting each other.
Oh yes, yeah.
And
We had more than the pure spring. His favorite.
and it carried
Well,
on.
He'd
It
phone
carried
up, get
on.
on my father. My father, he said, Dave, I got a really nice guy here. He hasn't got a job and no money and everything else. And that pure spring, we must have, over the years, we must have hired 30 or 40. They'd work for it, and then they were smart enough to work as laborers.
Yes.
Then they'd catch on, and then they would up and open small little food stores, little corner stores, and then one of them, like A.J. Freeman, does that strike a note?
Yes.
He was an immigrant. Came to Ottawa, started with a little store, and he became, in those days, a multimillionaire. Freeman store is the one right on Reader Street.
Mhm.
He was bought out by the bank. But Archie Freeman was his name. And
So there were, they all knew each other. I mean,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Ottawa Jewish community
Oh, yeah.
at that point was quite small.
And I want to tell you a story talking about art. This is a coincidence. The war broke out in 1939. I went down and joined up the same day. The next day, I got a telephone call, Howard Spread. And he said, Mervin, I hear you joined the Army. And I said, yes.
This is A.J. Freeman?
Yeah, A.J. Freeman. He said, would you find time to come up and see me? I want to see you before I go away. So I said, sure. Next day I went down. He was a great, fine gentleman. And he said, look at Mervin. He said, I've got some great friends in England. His name is Simon Marks. And he has a business called Marks and Spencer. Now listen to this. He said, we've known each other over the years. I am going to write to him and tell him that who you are, and that I'll be in touch with you. And he told me as soon as I get to England, you look up Marks and Spencer's at their office. And so my first leave in London, we were stationed on the South Coast, and I pick up the phone and he said, oh, yes, Mr. Mirsky, I'm so glad you called. I know all about you. And he said, we're having a party this weekend at our family home. And he gave me the address about 20 miles out of London. And he said, if you're free, please join us. So I said, thank you very much. So that weekend, I took the train and I found this place. And it was a gorgeous house, an elegant party going on. And there was this woman there, and she said, well, where are you living? You know, I said, we're down on the South Coast. We're holding the fort near Brighton, you know, the coastline. Well, she said, I've got a dear family of dear friends there, and would you mind phoning them, because they have a beautiful daughter. And that's perfect.
And so, and 40, 50 years
You
later.
talk about coincidence.
And that's how you met Barbara?
That's how I met Barbara.
Your wife, yes. Oh, gee.
I always say, she treated me like shit.
Well, that should be off the record. No.
You see, all the American Canadian guys, all they thought of was seducing English girls. And they were scared. The mothers were scared of all this, you see.
I'll bet.
But then and that's how I met Barbara.
Isn't that something?
Isn't that coincidence? Eh?
And we're all here today.
What's that?
We are all here today
Yeah.
as a result of that meeting. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Now I'm going to step back a bit. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. We were talking about Jacob's sons. He had no daughters. You can remember.
Yes, he did have one, Reeve.
Okay.
She became a nurse. And went down and nursed in the States in New York. She was a tiny little thing, smart, and just did her own thing and went down, studied as a nurse, became a nurse, and got a job in a New York hospital, and she had a lot of guts.
And did she ever marry or have
She
children?
never married.
So she was single her life. Yes. Dedicated to her calling.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. And Abe?
Abe was a kind, gentle guy. He wasn't held in very high repute because he was a bit on the lazy side. A very gentle guy, never ruffled any feathers, never married, and so he didn't make much of a mark on the family history.
Okay. And then there was David, your father.
David, my father.
Now, do you remember how they were ordered in age? Who was the oldest or the youngest? Who was in the middle?
I think my father was the eldest. I think Abe was second. How many brothers do they have?
Well, and then Reeve would have been the youngest, and there was
And
a
Reeve,
stepson.
maybe, yes, that was the three sons.
Right, and then there was Joe, but he was the
Joe.
stepson.
He was a stepbrother.
Yeah, stepbrother, yeah. All right.
Smart as hell.
So tell me what...
Joe went down to, you know.
Yeah,
He's a Canadian guy with nothing.
And he made a name for himself down there.
He made a he.
Yeah. Now, would you like to get that?
Would you mind?
No.
Now, my father David was a small little man, fair. My grandfather at that time was the sole clergyman. David was the eldest son. And my grandfather was making $18 a week. So my father went out to left school, and he got a job as a newsie on the train. In those days, there's a newsie up and down the aisles, newspapers, candy bars, and like that. They call them newsies. And he's 14, and he got a job as a newsie with CPR.
So this was instead of school or part-time?
Oh, he walked out of school. He just left school.
That was the end of his
That
education?
was the end of his education, yeah.
Wow.
And he, it's incredible. He watched all these people buying soft drinks.
Mm-hmm.
And he got an idea. Right down at the end of Wellington Street, there's used to be a big falls, a beautiful waterfall that came down over the cliffs, down into the Ottawa River. And it was just like a spring, you see. So my father got the idea of putting a little bottling plant down on the shoreline there and calling it Pure Spring Drinks, Pure Spring Ginger Ale.
Yes.
See, the main selling point was that it was a natural spring water. Now, he was only about 18 years old.
Wow.
And he went ahead and built a little soft drink plant.
Now, I understand there was an arrangement that he made. Wasn't there a brewery down there?
Was there what?
A brewery, or the Taylor family was involved.
Oh, yes, you're quite right. The Taylor family, my father wanted permission to use this. These it was the breeding brewery, you see,
Mm-hmm.
used that spring water. My father went to see Plunkett Taylor, who was the big shot guy, if he built a little soft drink plant right at the bottom of the hill, and whether he could do it. And this Plunkett Taylor was so, as he quotes, so amazed at the chutzpah, the nerve of this little guy. He said, "Sure, go ahead."
Wow.
So my father built this little soft drink plant.
It can't have been very large.
Oh no, the size of this room, the bottling room.
So what?
And this
12 by
bottling room,
18,
yeah,
something
and
like
then there
that?
was a storage room outside. And it was the most simple. There's a little. First of all, you had to wash the bottle, so we had a great big tub, and one person would dip the bottle in the hot water tub, shake it around a bit, and that's it, you see. And then the other man would be at the bottling machine. He'd take the clean bottle,
Quotes, yes.
and put it in this machine. It's a very simple machine. You pull one handle, and it gave a squirt of syrup into the bottle. Then you pull the other handle, and that was just soda water. So they mixed together. See what I mean?
Oh, so that was down the road, but at first he was just bottling water with them. Is that true?
No,
No?
I think he decided that the gimmick would be the drinks would be made from spring water.
Oh, right.
See what I mean?
Yes,
That was the, so that's what he called it, Pure Spring Ginger Ale, Pure Spring Iron Brew, Pure Spring that.
And where did he get the bottles?
Well,
Would he just order them?
Well,
or?
there was these companies
Yes.
in Montreal, actually. There's two of them that made glass bottles.
Mm-hmm. And he would have just gone.
They shipped them down to Ottawa, or he picked them up.
Oh, I was asking because I picked up some. I guess it was a family myth of him picking up bottles along the railway, out in the the railroad.
Mm-hmm.
The people tossing the bottles off. But I'm glad you cleared that up for me because I would have been passing on false information. All right. So, when did your father meet your mother? Do you remember how? Or?
That's a very interesting story. My mother was born in Montreal. She had one sister, very gentle, kind, no other children, no brothers or sisters. Her mother, I'll show you her mother's picture. West Coast. To give you an idea what they both look like.
All right. So tell me about your mother's side.
My mother.
What you were just telling me. Show me this picture. It's a beautiful picture of your grandmother and your mother. Tell me how your father met your mother.
Oh. determination.
Yes, yes.
And
It's a
her
wonderful
husband
thing.
was no good.
I know.
She left her husband, and as I she became a
This
dressmaker.
is your mother's mother, your grandmother.
That's what my mother's. That's what my grandmother.
That's right. So you were saying she was a dressmaker? Tell
She
me a
was.
bit. Well, we were talking when the machine wasn't on,
Mm.
the tape wasn't on, and you were just describing this woman to me.
Yeah.
Would you care to describe it for the interview?
She was like she'd sit there like a queen.
Okay, so we were walking downtown in Elida.
Mm-hmm. And a very distinguished elderly gentleman came up to me and said, "Hello, Mervin. You know, I'm Bill's father. His son was jackknife being collegiate." And he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm trying to join the army." He said, "You come right with me." He pulled me out of the lineup, took me downtown. He had just hadn't yet got his uniform. He was in the volleyball. And he said, "We're starting a new unit here now. Number 1 RCOC, Royal Canadian Arts Corps. Would you like to join it?" I said, "I don't care what it is. I want to get in the army." And
You were having some trouble getting into the army.
well, I was having trouble getting a commission. I mind you, I was pretty smug to expect going down a commission, you know. Especially because I had very little, other than being on the shooting team and being collegiate, I had very little army experience. And then he went, this tremendous guy. Now, his name was Bill something, and his son was with me. So I said, "You come with me. I'll join the army. Come with me." It brought me back to his business office. He was an insurance guy, and he was just instructed to recruit. He was in the militia to recruit officers for this new unit, R1 RCOC. So he said, "Would you like to join it?" I said, "Sure." You know, especially he was offering me a commission, not starting from scratch, and that's how I started. Pure fluke.
Wow. Now, what I understand is that you had some trouble. You were almost with the Cameron Highlanders.
That's right.
Now that came before the lineup.
That's when I went. Yeah, that's what.
Tell me
when
about
I got
that.
on the line. Well, when the war broke out, the day the war broke out, they were recruiting at the drill hall, you know, down there. There's a lineup from the cenotaph right down to the drill lineup. And I was in that lineup. And just by accident, this very nice guy came along and said, "Hello, Mervin." His son. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Trying to join the army." He said, "You come right with me."
That's right. That's right. But tell me about Cuthbert Scott. What happened? You want to get on with the Cameron Highlanders.
Well, as I say, Cuthbert Scott, definitely, because I was a Jew, wouldn't take me out of the Cameron Highlanders as an officer.
No. So is that where you went? When you first went to sign up for the army?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I got in the lineup like everybody else. The only guy with a tie on in the big lineup. See, there was terrible unemployment in those days, and a lot of guys, you know, turned to this just to get a job. Those were terrible days.
So there was a conversation between you and Cuthbert Scott when he came, when you
Well, when
came
I
to
was
him.
in the lineup, and then finally I reached. He was sitting at the desk. There were about 5 guys recruiting, and I was an empty chair, and I went in and sat in front of Cuthbert Scott. And he looked at me. "Yes, what is your name?" I said, "Mervin Mirsky." "And what brings you here?" He goes, "Well, so I'd like to join the army." But I said, "I'd like to get a commission, number 1, because I have been very active at Lake Collegiate. I was on the shooting team and in the militia and certain things, so I got a bit of a start. So I'd like to apply for a commission." And he said, "Are those your reasons? Is that what you're talking about?" This is to say, that's just a lot of bullshit. He wasn't giving me a commission. That's him.
So
He
you,
thanked my wife. Thank you very much. You saved my life.
A lot of them died.
Oh, half.
So he just flat out said no and sent you out the door. Is that right?
Just about.
Yeah.
Next, I waited a little while.
That's right. That's right. And your friend's father came
looked
out.
at me,
Yeah.
Mirsky, the Jewish thing, you can see. Well, I'm sorry, I've got any vacancies now. I did. But it did me the greatest favor.
That's right. Things happen for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So you got over with the Royal Ordnance Corps. And
I've had a wonderful senior.
Tell me about your time in England, because you didn't go right over to Europe right away. You spent some time in England.
I would say that we left from the time that I had that meeting. A month we were on the way to England. They were in real trouble.
Yeah.
The British had nothing, and the Germans had crossed over, and the Germans were just waiting across the channel for the invasion.
So where were you put?
Well, right along the channel. There was a 12-mile strip of the south coast, right into Brighton, and that's where we were stationed.
So you had to secure.
And we were waiting for trouble every minute. But in spite of that, the war was full blast. Every Saturday night at the railway station in Brighton, the trains would come in from everybody getting the hell out of London. All the Canadian soldiers lined up, going back in London, for the booze and the it's just a riot. I was the right guy. Went up to London every weekend.
And so it was basically unarmed that put that along the coast there, or there must have been people who had to stay behind.
I'm sorry?
There must have been some people.
Oh yes, but I'm just telling you how crazy it was.
Oh.
We were responsible.
Yeah.
And half those guys run that train to London every weekend. So to screw you, when it comes, it comes.
Yeah, yeah. So you spent your time.
And it was a very interesting part of one's life. I don't regret the 6 years I spent in there.
No. Well, you were mentioning to me at another time how when you were up in London during your time off, you might be in a bar and the bombers would come in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, tell me a bit about it. Tell me that again.
You wouldn't believe what the Germans were doing to the British. You see, they were preparing for the invasion, and the bombers would come over every night, squadrons of them. And what they do, they'd have specific targets. But if they were rushed by anybody, they just head for home as quickly as they could. And what they do is they drop their bombs before they cross the coast. The idea was, we can't reach our observers, but what the hell? We'll drop the bombs anyway.
So if this was Saturday night and you were up in London,
they'd be chasing back France.
But what were you doing?
And they just dropped them when they saw any big factory or, let's say, a big affair going on, a lot of people, they just dropped the bombs. But they meant just to drop them and get the hell home. And the damage, you can't imagine what happens when on the way home they had a hospital or a school. You can't imagine.
And you'd see that. Yeah. But if you were up, it was your time off. I just wanted to get this on tape because I thought it was such a nice story. You were saying that on your time off when you were up in London, you might go to the bar and the pubs and what have you. And if the bombers came over and you were in the pub, I mean, this was all going on, and
we just keep on drinking.
Did you go out to check?
Well, the odd time when there was a bomb or a lot of bombs fell just a mile or two from the coast where we were, maybe it was hit a church or something, and we were to get along, and we just sort of pay our bar bill and took a look over and went back to our unit to see whether we were going to be called upon to do anything.
Yes. Now, you work on maneuvers quite a bit when you were in the south of England.
Yeah.
Would you tell me some of the events that happened while you were doing these things?
It was the best girl. We'd give them pubs, we'd be in maneuvers, and then we'd camp outside of town, and then we'd all go to the town, the village, whatever it was, and get in the pub. And these people were so grateful, for Canadians, that right off the bat, you walk up to the barman for a drink, he would charge you for the first, at least 1 or 2 drinks. And the girls were, the girls, Jesus, they were really going for these Canadian guys, because their men were all out, and replaced by us. It's like leaving a field of cows in the pasture. And so it was well, the British generally are such hospital-warm people, and they were so grateful, for the Canadians coming over to help us. And we were right in the hot spot on the south coast. The Germans were just across the channel, and they were expecting the Germans. And that's when the Germans made, as I told you, the great mistake. They decided that Hitler was a greater menace than England, and so they switched right around and headed for Germany.
Who?
All the British and the Canadians and everything else.
Right.
And we landed in France, and we headed for Germany because Hitler was the greatest menace to Europe and to peace and everything. You see. But in any event, the British, as they always are, they're fair, good people. And you see, the Canadians could have just sat at home, and done nothing. The Canadians sent thousands of guys over to England, volunteers, everything, and just got into the army, and we had a 12-mile front on the Rhine, Germany there, and we were a great help to the British, and they never forgot it.
So you'd be out practicing, and like
Oh,
you're
on
going to tell.
maneuver.
Well, when you did maneuvers,
Yeah.
and the English were very hospitable. Tell me
Oh,
about that one time when you camped out on the front of an estate.
Yes, that's
Yes,
the
tell me
Bowes
about.
Line.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was Bowes Lions. Yes. What happened there?
Well, we stopped, and we were on maneuvers, and we had the power if we needed to take over some land, or if we needed, our maneuvers. So we were going north, and we needed to stop for the night. And here was this beautiful big gardens and estate. So we just stopped, and I was a senior officer, so I found out who the owner was, and I'd walk up to him and I'd say, I'm really sorry, I would have to occupy your land and all that, but we're on maneuvers, and I just want to tell you that we'll try our best not to damage your land, and that went over big. They did. They gave us a shirt off their back.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they didn't have a problem with that.
Oh no, it's just the other way around.
No. So the Bowes Lions, they actually entertained you. Didn't they?
They had me up for dinner.
How did that come about?
I don't know. I spoke to see. He was out for a walk when I first met him, and I spoke to him. I told him I didn't know. And I told him how sorry I was that we had occupied a piece of land just up the road that he owned. And he was so impressed that we had asked. That's when he invited me up for dinner.
So you went?
Yeah. Dinner.
So
It's a little Canadian punk like me, There's something around their Bowes Line. One of the wealthiest guys in England.
Well, he even invited you up to clean up at his place, didn't he? Or
What's that?
he invited you to clean up, go up to the house. I understand. It's an old story.
Well, I wanted to clean up.
That's right. And
Oh, you said yes. He told me if I liked to wash up and so forth, please don't hesitate to use our bathroom.
Isn't that something? So and there was another officer with you, wasn't there?
Yeah.
You and he went together.
Yeah.
And then what did you do after dinner?
Very informal, pleasant chat. You know, they were quizzing me about Canada, things like that, and I was quizzing them about. There was a very historical place there, the Battle of Marlborough or some bloody place, and of course England's full of those places, especially North. But it was the typical British hospitality. They felt an immediate obligation to do something for these Canadian guys who were going over there and risking their lives, and they really appreciated it. They were anything for us.
And now, did you? Well, actually, I know the answer to this one. You introduced Laura Secord to
I
Lady.
had some Laura Secord candies. Yeah, I gave her a box of candy. That's right. That's right. It's funny, I remembered that. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
That went over big.
Well, I guess sugar was short during the war.
Everything was short, you know.
Yeah, so that would have been really appreciated.
Yeah. But that was good. Those Laura Secord candies.
Yeah, that's great. Now, you also met Barbara, your wife.
Now, do you want to know how we met Barbara?
I'd love to.
Okay. In Ottawa, one of the most highly respected and wealthiest family was the Freeman family, A.J. Freeman. And he sold out, and Hudson's Bay had, they owned that big department store. He sold out to them. One of the finest men, he started from nothing and built up this big business. When he heard that I was going overseas, he phoned me and said, Mervin, I'm going overseas. I've got a great friend in England, but in any event, he said, you come and have dinner with us, and I'll tell you all about it. We're having a party out of his cottage, and join us there for dinner. So I was pleased to do that. And he got me to one side, and he said, now, I've got a great friend in England. His name is Simon Marks. Now, you never heard of him, but he has a company called Marks and Spencer, and they have these variety stores all over England. And he's one of the wealthiest guys in England. He said, I know him way back. I'm going to phone him and tell him that you're in England and that I will be contacting you. I got to England. The weekend came along and I phoned. No, I was in London on leave, and I looked up Marks and Spencer's, their office, and it was there. So I went down there, went to the office, went to the counter, and asked whether I could speak to Sir Simon Marks. And she said, just a moment. Got him on the phone. And the next thing I know, he came rushing out of his office. And he said, Mr. Freeman, Archie Freeman, my great friend, called me about you, and I'm so delighted to see you. Now, we're having a garden party at my summer home this Saturday, and could you please join us? So I said, that's very kind of you. So in any event, I went to this garden party. There was pool and all that. And there was this very nice, pleasant woman who sort of, she got talking to me. And she said, I have a family, great friends of mine, and they have a beautiful daughter. And her name is Barbara. And we're having this garden party, and Barbara wasn't there, but anyway, this person was there, and they are very nice woman, very nice. Mm-hmm. And then she contacted Barbara family, said there was a nice Jewish Canadian boy here, and I went out to this Sunday party, and I called Barbara, and she's very cool, but I invited her out for dinner, and she was in the last, and she was hungry all the time.
Don't know whether she'd appreciate hearing that. No.
I'm sure that
Yeah.
all she wanted was one real good dinner, no charge, and that's how it.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you were warmly received.
No,
No.
coolly received.
Oh.
But Barbara, I don't know what it was, whether she was shy or hid the fact that she was shy. But she was very cool cooking. And she was bestowing herself on me by my taking her out to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go over to the house on Friday.
But she went out with you again, obviously.
Yes, I took her out again when I was on leave. I really, she left a great impression on me. She was a purple, she was beautiful, very voluble,
Mm-hmm.
make conversations,
Mm-hmm.
not just a big Dumbo. Barbara was a charmer with a great sense of humor.
So were you engaged before you went over for liberation?
No, that's happened when I asked her to marry me. I met her in London for dinner. And that's when I said, I hope you're registered, but would you be kind enough to marry me? You looked at the little Barbara. Well, I don't know. I have to think this over. I said, well, can you give it your best attention? And then I phoned her and once again took her out to dinner. That was a great date because it felt a lot of good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she slowly, but she was scared, as they should be.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know anybody. Although her father, who did business in America, had his American agent check on my family here in Ottawa through the Freeman family. I think I told you that. And so they gave me a good rating.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I married Barbara. And I must say, I couldn't have made a better choice. Of all the girls and women that I met, somehow or other, she struck a chord. Great sense of humor.
Well, and you're still here together today.
Yeah, I'm still here today.
There you go.
Yeah.
It was a long-lasting. It's a long-lasting relationship through thick and thin.
You're quite right.
Now, this all happened before you knew that you're going across to Europe for the liberation.
This was before the invasion. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you were sent over, do you remember approximately how soon after D-Day that you went over?
When I spoke to her?
No, that you went over for the liberation. I wanted to get a bit into that and your experience in Europe and what your job was over there and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So tell me about it going over to Europe.
I had been sent back to Canada to RMC, and I got a 4-year RMC course in 4 months, and I got my degree as an Army staff officer. I was qualified as an Army staff officer. It's like for peacetime, you have to graduate from RMC to become an officer. Well, that's what I did, and I was so qualified. And then things were really moving. And I had to go and join Canadian Army headquarters, and I got a lift on one of the Army planes going back and forth. And so I joined up with the Canadian Army head office somewhere in northern France.
So this was after your time in England? You had to come back to Canada and you trained some more?
No, we didn't come back to Canada.
Okay.
I did. Yes, we did. We went back and I went to RMC.
Okay, and then that's when you went over England, and then you went to Europe
after we finished the
that?
course, they shot us right back.
Right back, okay.
It was a 3 or 4 year RMC course in 4 or 5 months.
Wow. All right, and then shortly after that, is that when you went to Europe? for the liberation?
Well,
I'm
we
trying to
were
get a
on top,
time frame.
When we say Europe, you got to be divided between England and across the up to that time we were only in England.
Right.
I go to staff college.
Mhm.
When I get back, the invasion had started, and so the British and the Canadian Army were going across the Channel, landing in France, and then moving north. And the Germans were coming down south, and we met on the Rhine.
Oh, all right.
See what I mean?
Yes.
And
so did you go over by ship or by plane or?
mostly, but I was lucky. I traveled by ship back and forth to Canada, but moving around, I was moving around by plane as a staff officer.
Oh, I see. Okay, so the troops that you were in charge of.
I'm sorry.
You were in charge of troops going up through France. Is that
Well,
right?
I wouldn't say I was in charge of that. As it unfolded, there was two head offices. We had a head office in England, and then when we flew over, we had another Canadian Army headquarters in France. And so when I got back to staff college, they shot me right over to the France.
Okay.
And,
So what did you have to do over there?
well, as a staff officer, we just had to control the movements of our Canadian Army. See, we ran our own show next to the British, and so we had everything to do from the training recruits and to engaging in little operations where we go over at night with a small crew and just fool around to see what the defenses were over there. It was very, very tricky stuff, and I didn't go on in any of those expeditions, but I was in charge of arranging, what the problem was in this area, putting people there to sneak across, and see if when we did go over what we're up against. Did they have any artillery, for example? If they had any artillery, what kind it was, just to know what we were going to get into. So that's the kind of work. It was sort of detailed reconnaissance in preparation for the grand Grand.
Oh, so you were ahead of the main wave that came in, or were you behind them? In terms of the invasion, you were just behind them?
We were just behind them.
Okay.
At the head off, at the regional, for example, we were given a frontage, as I say, about 12 miles, and then we had to arrange for supplies, ammunition, weapons, correlate with England, especially on air movement and stuff like that.
You were the support.
Yeah.
Then.
And I was representing the Canadian Army. There were several of us with the British Army because we were moving together. We were really correlating.
Now, during that time, I understand that you were driving somewhere in a Jeep and you tripped over Bergen-Belsen.
That's what, that's where I ran into Bergen-Belsen going north. I didn't think, I couldn't, I often think back on that. That was the craziest experience that I have ever seen.
It was unexpected.
I told you that.
Tell me.
Yeah, I was driving in a Jeep, and
all right, you were just starting to tell me about Bergen-Belsen.
I had a Jeep and a driver. So we had arrived in France, and I had just come back from staff college, and I was in effect on my own reconnaissance to see what was going on. I was at head office, but I wanted to see what was going on down around. And had a Jeep, and we were moving up this small side road, and all of a sudden there was a smell. Holy gee, it's sickening. What the hell was that? Garbage or whatever it is. And then we started seeing these girls, must have been about 50 or 60 of them, standing on the side of the road, and all they had for clothing, they take a sack, and they cut the corners out of the sack and pull the sack over their heads, you see, and that was their dress. That's all the clothing they had. And we saw these girls all lined up, and they were raving, young, and everything else. And then the smell, and then the next thing I knew, I was in Bergen-Belsen. The British had just arrived about 5 or 6 hours before me, and Bergen-Belsen was the greatest atrocity I think the world has ever known. The smell, I went in, the smell was awful, and then I went in and I got a hold of the he said, you may as well start right here. He said, just look out the door. They were carrying dead Jews who were there by the hundreds. And down about 800 or 900 yards, they dug a great big hole. And these were all the survivors, and they were dumping these bodies. In the railway station you have these things on wheels with a platform, and you put the luggage on them.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they were doing that with dead bodies. And they had these were all people that were scared shitless. The Germans had all taken off, but these were Dutch people that had collaborated with us. In any event, they were dumping dead bodies in that hole. Well, would be about 20 or 25 to I think, consistently. I don't know how many. It would have been as much as 1,000 dead people that that dug these holes in. That was Bergen-Belsen. And it was as bad. Bergen-Belsen was considered, the concentration camp. It wasn't as bad as you read. It was 10 times worse.
You
How
can't even
human
imagine.
beings can take people like that and starve them to death and then dump them in a great big hole.
Life is meaningless.
And people say, oh, it's not as bad as it was worse.
Wow.
And
What time of year was this?
This was in the spring.
In the spring. So there's, it would have been mud, and it would have been muddy and cold.
Oh,
and
yeah. It wasn't
horrific.
pleasant.
Now, did you take the time to actually walk around the barracks?
I sure
and
did. I went right down to the pits where they were dumping the bodies there.
And you saw sleeping quarters or what they had to live in?
The sleeping quarters were just shacks.
Jeez.
And the guard had a big ring around it. But I was there, and I just, I was staggered. I went right down. These people that the Germans left the Dutch people, they're just laborers and all that. So they weren't collaborators, they were just and left them. And the idea was that bodies were starting to disintegrate and smell. So they were just loading bodies out of this thing and dumping them in the river bowl. And that was Bergen-Belsen. And Bergen-Belsen, people talk about it. It wasn't bad. It was worse than you could possibly imagine how human beings could treat human beings.
Do you remember sounds there? Was it quiet? Were people generally quiet? Was there a lot of activity?
Well, there was a lot of activity. The British were moving in and getting the mess organized, and they used were some German prisoners that they took at the same time, but they were organizing all these people to just put the dead bodies, put them in a hole.
It's pretty
as
somber.
quick as possible.
Yeah. So it was quiet with respect to people talking.
No, there was no shooting or anything like that.
No.
People were very quiet. They were scared shitless.
Yeah.
They didn't know what that was going to happen to them when they were part of that camp.
Yeah.
But they were just labor. They were just labor.
And the British that were there, they were just as Did they know what they were moving in on, or were they
They-
shocked when they got there and actually saw what
I
was
think
going
they
on?
had rumors of what was going on, but until they actually saw it, as they told me, they couldn't believe it.
So that must have stayed with you for a long time.
Can never forget.
And then you
How could civilized, the Germans are civilized people, they're not like the Zulus or something like
Mhm.
that in Africa. How they could do what they did, it's incredible.
and to actually see that. So, well, later, years later, I'll just bring you a little closer to the present for a moment, because I know there was a gentleman in town promoting a book on how the Holocaust did not happen. And
How what?
how the Holocaust did not happen.
Oh,
And
was
you
that-
went down to the Chateau Laurier.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Just for a moment, we'll come into more present times,
Mhm.
that event. Do you remember who that gentleman was?
I forgot his name.
Yeah.
I might recognize that I heard.
But,
Oh, he was a bad medicine. Bad medicine, that guy.
and he was trying to tell people that the Holocaust is
Yeah.
fabricated. And, but what was it like? You went down out of a sense of conscience.
When he finished, I just stood up. I just told him what a phony bullshit that he was pouring in, and then there wasn't a fucking word of truth. I used a dirty word.
Was he shocked that anybody who'd actually seen any of these places was?
Silence. The place was filled. He did his stuff, and I did mine. His dead silence. And then the chairman said about good evening, ladies and gentlemen. That's it for the night.
That's it for the night, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, jeez. Well, once you cleaned up how, in Europe and you finally came home,
I'm
you had
sorry.
earned yourself an OBE, the Order of the British Empire,
Yeah, yeah,
for the work you did.
yeah.
And it was all related to the reconnaissance and supplying the
Yeah.
troops. There wasn't any specific event that precipitated that award, was there? Or
Gallantry, that's all it's
you were gallant,
Gallantry. I was gallant.
man. You ever feel strange associating that word with yourself?
It's a compliment.
It is, for sure. For sure.
But it wasn't as if you planned. You just did what had to be done at the moment.
Yeah.
People weren't gallant. You did do something, you'd get it in the nick.
You had to watch out.
So we were. That's the whole point. That we were momentous.
Mm-hmm.
We started pushing the Germans back, and they were going deeper and deeper, and a lot of them never got back into Germany. They were captured and put in the other work camps for the French and the Belgians, and they made them do a lot of work to make up for the damage.
Now you came into contact with a number of the civilians
Yes.
as well, and that included a sister pop.
Oh yes. Yeah, you're filling the thing right up. Now what happened with Sister Pop?
How did you come across her?
We were in Holland, and I was commanding this unit, and Vicente said there's a woman who would like to speak to the commanding officer. And in came this woman, she was about 65, 70, with a very nice young girl of about 15 or 16. And she introduced herself. And she said that she had hidden about 15 Jews in her attic all during the war. All during the war. And I was privileged to speak to some of them, and we went around. She showed us where she put them in her attic. And that's what she did. If she would have been caught, she would have been shot.
What
And
town was this in?
There's a little Dutch town. It's near Breda. Near Breda. Yeah. That
So-
was, I wrote back to Canada about that, and oh boy, I said, thing really started to happen. And I brought her here to Canada to stay with us.
After the war?
After the war.
To visit.
Yeah, Barbara's had it.
Well, she needed glasses at one point. Didn't she leave glasses or something, and you found a pair for her?
It could be.
She did. I just seem to remember that.
Yeah, there's something like that.
Yeah. But she was.
But
she hid those kids. They were all children, were they?
All children.
And they were never discovered.
She hid them all the time.
And fed them and took care of them.
Everything.
Wow. It's really.
Oh, she's in the archives now. Canadian Jewish Congress and all that. I brought her over here, and boy, did she ever go over.
I'll bet she did. I'll bet she did. So this is shortly after that you came home.
Mm-hmm.
And now you were married before you went over. Before you went over to Europe, weren't you?
No,
When did you actually get married to Barbara?
I got married to Barbara, in effect, after the war was over.
Mm-hmm. It was August
Whatever it
1st.
was.
You're supposed to know that. August 6th, 1945.
That's it.
There
Just
you
the day the war
go.
ended, yeah.
That's great. So Barbara, being a war bride, she came over to Canada before you got back home?
Yeah.
So
It was a trick getting her. They were sending them back in sort of blobs, and it was a trick getting her in one of these blobs. And I got her back, and it took a lot of guts from her. She didn't know what the hell she was getting into. Although her father had checked with an American businessman to find out what my family was out
That's
for.
right. That's right. You're saying that. And
he gave us an extra cut.
so she wasn't
approval.
going. I can only imagine what she was thinking when she got to Ottawa after being in England
She
her whole life.
deserves, Barbara deserves more guts. You know what a risk it is. You know, and to be alone, leave alone, and come over here. Mind you, her father had checked thoroughly with my family, but still, you didn't know what the hell you were getting into.
No.
I could have been a pervert. Or,
Anything else? Well, there were stories. There were a lot of stories about soldiers that went over.
Oh
and
yeah, that
left there.
War brides, and they told their brides about the wonderful jobs they had in Canada and the ranches they had. That's the big thing. So everyone had a ranch in Canada, and the British girls fell for. This like I thought of it. It's got to be a joke.
Oh, gee.
You know.
Well, joke for the Canadian men, maybe, but not
Yeah,
for the women.
The women, yeah. Oh, they were going over to a ranch in Canada. That's what their boyfriend.
So when you finally caught up, you got back home and
Yeah,
got settled.
Barbara went ahead of me, you see.
Mm-hmm. And she
arranged
lived
that.
with your family until you
And
got
she
home?
stayed, yes, with Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
No, she stayed with my brother Jack's wife, Mary. And they really treated her very good. They were really. You never met my brother Jack?
No.
And Norman.
I met Norman. I knew Norman.
You knew Norman?
Yeah. And what a sense of humor.
Well, I must say that there's a couple of fine guys.
They were.
Right?
They were.
Yeah.
So she was over how many months before you got back, do you think?
What, 2 months?
2 months. So then you got back, you were together,
Yeah.
and you settled, you found a place to settle down. Where did you first settle?
Our first house was just a small, nice little house down here, roughly just between Rockcliffe and Ottawa, you know.
Was that the Island Park? The Geneva Street house? Or was that a later house?
Our house was on Sherwood Drive or something like that.
Okay.
I can't give you a straight
Yeah.
answer, right?
Because the first one I'm aware of was the Geneva Street.
Oh, that's where from Europe and Barbara there, we stayed with Jack and his wife and Norman and his wife, and they treated us great. And I think Barbara was forever grateful because she didn't want to get it. And then I built the house on Geneva Street. Did you ever see it?
Oh, I've seen it from a
It's a
distance.
very
Yes.
charming little
Nice
house.
little grey house.
Yeah,
Grey brick.
Grey brick, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a nice area.
Yeah.
And
So what was your future at that point? You came back.
well, I had several choices. They wanted me to stay on in the Army. That's a brigadier. Then Norman ran the Pure Spring Company. Wanted me to go into Pure Spring. And then Jack, who had his own law firm, wanted me to go into law. So I had three choices. You know, I was a graduate lawyer, so I couldn't take any one of the three. And I'd chosen the soft drink business. I was too restless and so forth to start practicing law.
You changed too much.
Yeah.
It's
And the soft drink business was the second thing to being in the Army in a war.
You think so?
We were fighting Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola and all these guys were trying to murder all small guys like us.
So you decided to go with Pure Spring. What position did you take up?
Well, my brother Norman was president and I became the vice president.
Okay. And you fought off the big guys for a long time.
We did very well.
I mean, the Pure Spring ginger ale is still on the shelves.
Yes. We at one stage in Ottawa, we were selling as much Pure Spring as Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola didn't like it one bit.
But you had a large number of flavors too, didn't you?
Yeah, they had flavors and we had flavors.
Yeah.
But we had nicer bottles and more. We had honey orange, and we had a nice tall bottle with no gas in it, just orange. And we had unique things, you see. We didn't just. We may have had Pure Spring ginger ale, and we tried to make it sound like the real old time stuff. But we built up a business, $1 million business.
Well, how did you discover the different flavors? I mean, you
We
test
just-
different flavors, right?
Well, most of them are standard. Ginger ale, cola. We had RC cola.
Okay. There's grape.
Cream soda, grape. We had whatever. We had a special cream soda. Everything was special. A special grape, minted grape. We used to have grape ours with
Oh,
minted.
minted grapes. I love minted. Yeah, that's good
Isn't
stuff.
it?
That's really
And
good
so we
stuff.
tried to give an individual character
Mm-hmm.
to just, we just didn't sell grape, we sold minted grape. We did cream soda, we sold Swiss cream soda. So we tried to give some individuality. So people would walk in and ask, and it worked.
You did good business. You were way up the Gatineau.
Oh, yeah.
The whole
We did a
9 yards.
wonderful business.
That's it. And you became very involved in carbonated beverage
Yeah.
industry, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, for a while I was the executive of the Canadian
Yeah,
Carbon.
you were recognized for that.
Yeah.
And you were the president. You're the president of the Carbonated Beverages
What's that?
Institute. You're the president of the Carbonated Beverages Institute
Yes, yeah.
between in what 1916 and 64, and then
Right.
again between 74 and 76.
I can't
Yeah.
remember twice, but I know I was president.
Yeah, no, you were showing me some of the pictures and the documentation you have down in the basement
Oh,
there.
yeah.
That's where I picked up my little facts
Yeah.
here. So, and all this time you're starting a family. Peter was your oldest. He was born in 1948. And then Philip.
Oh,
No, Peter was born in 46, and then Philip was born in 48. And then Jane was 49, April 20th, 49. And then Michael, January 31st, 1951. And Brian was March the 2nd,
we had
1954.
5 kids.
5 amazing kids. They
Yeah,
just,
each one different.
and I don't know, these days it's hard to imagine having 5 children under the roof and keeping your sanity and your career and
Barbara was a remarkable person. She really was.
Yeah.
She,
the whole family is a very close family.
they got a lot on the ball.
Yeah.
Her brother Oliver was judge in England. Just imagine. He was a lawyer. he was in the Navy during the war, doing a good job. You never met him, right? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you met
Yeah,
him?
I've met him a couple of times, and his son.
Well,
Well, both of them. I met both his sons.
Mhm.
Met Stephen and this is good. Nicky.
Nicky, yeah.
So you were doing that, and you became involved in B'nai B'rith. The B'nai B'rith, you were very involved in the Jewish community, Jewish.
Yeah, I was president of the local B'nai B'rith branch.
And you were honored by them as the Ottawa Citizen of the Year in 1975 for all the things you've done. That's incredible. And you're very good at fundraising.
Yeah.
I see that between...
I hated it, but I was good at it.
But you did a lot of good as a result of that. You became...
There's a lot of money.
And one of those was Children's Hospital, CHIO.
This, I would say that if anybody was responsible for a children's hospital in Ottawa, it was me.
Yeah.
We started with nothing. But I enjoyed it. That was really, it was an easy sell, you know what I mean? But we didn't have a children's hospital. Have you seen it lately? Wow.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's...
How did the group come together? I mean...
Well, we sort of formed a committee, fundraising committee, and there was a lot of interesting, prominent guys that joined in the committee, all business guys. And it was an easy step. Not only we got them in, did they make a good contribution, but they were great phoning up some other successful business guy and say, you know, hi, George, how are you, you little bugger, and all that. By the way, look at that, we're raising money for a children's hospital. What do you say? I'd say $1,000. He'd say, well, make it 2. Make it 2. And that's the way the money was raised.
Wow. And it was networking, and well, for a children's hospital, I think everyone was happy to see that go up.
Yeah.
They've saved so many children's lives, and the research that goes on there.
If I ever did anything for a good cause, that was it.
Yeah. Well, you founded the food bank. You
Yes.
started the food bank as well.
Yeah.
And you think your experience during the Depression and your mother influenced that?
Yeah, I think, well, definitely the Depression had a great effect. We had, you know, our doorbell at night would be ringing every 5 minutes for people just asking for a handout of food. I'm telling you, you never saw the light.
No.
And that left a terrible impression on me.
So,
so in any event, that's prompted me to start the food bank.
yeah. You just saw there's still hungry people
Yeah.
out there, and because anybody could have started it, but you decided to take the responsibility on your own shoulders, and this has to be done. I'm going to do it, and it's still operating.
Oh yeah.
And doing very well. But
I think I'm very lucky, Kathy. And when I see a need for something or I see an opportunity, I don't sit on my ass. You know what I mean? And especially the soft drink business, you know, that is not an easy business. We have nice competition in Coca-Cola, Pepsi, you know, we have the big boys. And yet, by the time we sold the business, we were doing as much business as Coke was having.
And you sold the business in the 60s, I guess. You had a family meeting over that, I understand. But you treated the employees well. I mean, all the stories I hear are so positive. You were voted Man of the Year in the Italian community. I mean,
they're doing it again.
That's what I hear.
Shelley, you know Shelley, Ellenworth?
Yes, Jane's
well,
former husband.
So for some unknown reason, even though he's married to my daughter, he's one of the best booster I've got, far beyond what he gets me and stuff. And so he's arranged, and we had the head of the Italian Jews come into my office. The Italian community want to honor me by a special dinner, which is going to take place in about 2 weeks. And the reason for that was at Pure Springs, it was right on Preston Street.
Yes.
And half our people were employees were Italian. And they never forgot it.
Yeah. Well, I know Peter, who's down in the courthouse, your son. He's running into constables, he's running into all sorts of people frequently. I don't know how frequently recently, and they all seem to have worked at Pure Spring at some time in their life.
That's right. Yeah. Especially Italians.
Yeah. And they all speak fondly of that experience. So it was very much, you cared about the employees. That's the general sense that anyone who's worked there. My brother worked there a couple of summers.
Did he work there?
You remember that, Graham? Who came up and stayed with us. And he worked out at Pure Spring for a couple of summers.
Did he work all summer, you mean?
Yeah.
Did he like it?
Oh, of course he did. He just knew you don't stand around and look like you're doing nothing, that's all.
Was he out in the trucks, Graham, or in the plant?
He was out in the trucks.
Yeah.
Out in the trucks, yeah. Yeah, and he enjoyed it very much. It was a good experience for him.
You're out in the open, it's good exercise.
And then Peter was on, all of the kids, Peter and Michael?
Yeah.
Dylan? Did Ryan spend time on the trucks too, or out in the...
Everyone,
all of them.
Except Jane.
Yeah. But she hit the advertising. There's a poster of her advertising Pure Spring. She's got a Pure Spring bottle in her hand down in the basement.
Well, that's a picture of her, yeah.
That's right. So the whole family was a family affair. So,
that's a cute picture of her.
Yeah. Well, I know Peter speaks fondly. He blames his bad back on hauling those cases on the hip. But things have come a long way. Then Pure Spring sold out to Crush. Is that right?
No.
The unions got involved there.
Let's see. We Crush was a head office in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot of money in it too. They were getting nowhere in the auto market, and they decided the only way for them to get into the auto market was to buy his head. Mm-hmm. And we were doing a hell of a business. We had RC Cola, which was wonderful. What we did, we didn't just want to have another cola. This had a good flavor, but we had double the amount of syrup in it, so it was heavy.
Mm-hmm.
We could drink it.
Mm-hmm.
It had something. And in other words, we'd get these things, but we just wouldn't take them. We'd polish them up, and then we got a very smart Pure Spring bottle, a small 10-ounce bottle. And we were doing a hell of a business. We sold it for several million bucks.
Mm-hmm. Now, when did there was union trouble at one point? Was that before Crush came along? Because I understand things got pretty ugly for a while when the unions wanted to move in.
The unions got in. I forget sort of the detail. I know we tried to keep them out, but they really organized a strike, and so they finally went along.
Well, you had some threats.
What's that?
There were some threats.
Oh, yeah.
Things got a little scary there for a bit.
I had to have an escort to go around.
Oh, jeez. So, but you still ran Pure Spring after Crush bought it?
Yes, for what?
You kept the name Pure Spring, but it was under the Crush trademark or something.
Oh, Crush.
Yeah. And then, what happened after that? Did Pepsi buy them?
I was meanwhile getting more and more into real estate.
Yes.
And so I finally, resigned. They had been very good to me. Paid for me. But I never realized how interesting and rewarding the real estate business is.
Who got you into that? Who lured you into the...
Nobody.
No, you just took an interest?
Yeah, I just... And I think even today, the best investment you can make is in real estate. Even these big real estate companies, because real estate is like a commodity. It's getting more and more valuable every year, automatically, and less available. Used to be able to go out and buy 200-acre farm for, $50 an acre and all that kind of stuff. No way anymore. In other words, the supply of real estate is literally limited.
It's a finite.
But its value steadily appreciates.
Well, especially with the growth that we've seen in Ottawa in the last few years. And you had a business group.
That's right.
You had a business group. You formed a business group. Lemark Farms.
Yeah.
And those businesses, those shopping malls that you've got have just taken off.
Did I tell you I was out over the weekend? Did I tell you about that?
Yes. It's incredible.
Perth. Oh, God. I literally figured, my God. And the owner of the store saw me. And you see, he's a licensee. He has the franchise, which is a YIG, your independent grocer. He's an independent guy. A nice. Now, maybe I'm sort of going to sidetrack, but we're talking about Lemark Farms. It started out literally with nothing, just one. We now have a shopping plaza in Manatee. We have a shopping plaza in Crown Place. We have a shopping plaza in Perth. We have one of the most successful apartment with major holders, a big apartment house down in Mountain Street. Our assets right now that we're accompanied with all these holders is about $25 million.
Now, what made you cite, or how did you cite these particular places in terms of?
It's just instinct. And there is a hole there, for example, and the biggest hole is in Perth. In these other nice towns, Perth is a very big, solid town. And there was nothing there. None of these, just like these places. I think maybe part of my reason for success is that when I see an opportunity, I don't just sit on it. I do something about it.
Well, yes.
And when I saw Perth, I was driving to Toronto, and there was a stoplight going into the town, and there was this great big farm. I think I told you about that. And I said, holy Jesus, that would make it great, just like that. And what did they like? They put everything together, and we bought the property, the farm from the lady. She got $250,000 bucks. She was wild delighted.
That's a lot of money.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And we built it. I picked that one because it's probably our most successful. But I had nothing. It's just an idea.
Well,
then you have to arrange. I have to arrange to get the zoning changed. I have to arrange for the financing. We needed to get about a $10 million mortgage and all that.
No, the members of the group, like Gordon Henderson was in this group.
Yeah, there's a group. But they're all nice guys.
Yeah. All within the Jewish community?
Well, Gordon Henderson.
Gordon Henderson's not, no. That's right. Just friends over time.
We did nice living at the Jewish people, but just by accident. But did you ever know Gordon Henderson?
I had met him, yes.
One of the finest gentlemen that I have ever known. And he, Gordon Henderson got along very well with the Jewish people, even though he wasn't Jewish. He was just one of these people that had the empathy and they had the respect for him because he was one of the finest gentlemen.
Well, a sense of integrity.
What's that?
He had a great sense of integrity.
One of the saddest things I ever seen when he was dying. We were friends from way back when he was at Lisgar Collegiate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, we weren't at Lisgar, but somehow or other our families. Oh yeah, his father was a lawyer for my father.
Oh, okay. That's how you met.
That's where we got to know him. But to cut a long story short, I was smart enough to see the future of real estate. And I think even now, tremendous opportunities in real estate. You know, we built an apartment house, 270 units. We have a 45% ownership there. And everybody thought we were nuts. How can you rent 270 units? You know, you can't do it.
No.
We did it. And it's one of the best investments we ever made.
It's just having a sense for it.
Hey?
It's just having a sense for it.
Exactly.
And a feel for it.
You have
You have to have a base, but a lot of it's instinct, as you say.
Oh, I think a lot of it, instinct. You just have to sit back and say, now what's the future of this? Is it going to work?
Well, your manatee investment.
Yeah, putting up that farm, we got our money out of that many times, and we were sitting on a pile of very valuable property now. See, they put a freeze. We were selling areas, a block of land divided up into lots, and we'd sell the lots. Phase 1, phase 2, and all of a sudden they put a freeze on phase 3 because they didn't want any more housing using septic tanks.
Oh, okay. They want proper sewers.
And not that they really started to call them halt. But that land is still very valuable.
It's a matter of time. With Canada the way it's grown.
But we sold hundreds of lots of that. Out there, and we were selling those lots at $60,000, $70,000 a lot. Some of them $90,000. We have one left in mine. We made millions.
So you've been involved in real estate. You've been involved in the Children's Hospital and the Regional Hospital Planning Board.
I've been involved in the soft drink business.
The soft drink business, right? You're president of the Jewish Community Council of Ottawa and the chair of the Community Relations Committee. I'm just reading these notes that I've taken down, for which you were recognized by the neighborhood. That all these things were part and parcel of why you were elected. And Jim Gerald, mayor of the city of Ottawa, recognized you in, 1986?
What was that, Jim? What?
Jim Gerald. You were recognized for founding the food bank in 1986,
yes,
which we talked about. And you've just been so busy. You've contributed so much. And now your children, Brian's president of Campbell's Canadian division. He's in the food business. Michael's got his home hardware franchises, yes. And Peter followed in your footsteps to a degree. He's a lawyer, and he's taken up an interest in real estate. He's a whole new man.
I think he enjoys it, though.
I think, and more and more, he enjoys it.
But you see, real estate, like in law, you go down to work, you got to work every day on a new case, and, and when it's all over, I mean, you got nothing to show for it. It's like, if you're in the brick business, you sell the bricks, but if you're in the housing business, and you put the bricks in, you have a house which will sell for a very good price or which you can rent. In other words, real estate has so many opportunities. And if I were starting all over again, I would even have gone out of the soft drink business into the real estate.
Right from one to the other. Well, there was probably a sense of family there too. It was a family business.
But
and you brothers.
Real estate still is.
It's huge. So, well, if you had are there any other thoughts that you'd like to add? You've just contributed so much in your life, and you've gained so much wisdom. That
I think one of the most important decisions you make is your way. How you get married, how that works. Because you can be a skillionaire that you're going home and screaming and yelling and fighting. And as I do some men, that's exactly what their marriage is like. I wonder if they ever took account, but I'd say of every 100 marriages, there may be 20 of them that are perfect, 20 of them that are good, and the rest are come see, come saw.
Yeah.
They don't even, there's some people that I know that that just savor their wives and their marriage, and I thought that Peter does in yours, and there's some men that are completely in they don't care what the time of day. Come home and eat their supper, go out to the wrestling matches.
Oh no.
That kind of stuff.
Yes.
But to the whole life of melting in with their family.
The family unit's important.
In the levels that we look at, that's not a problem. But you take these average working guys, gee, they can have some miserable lives. They just put in time. It's so bad.
Well, it's stressful in today's times. Anyway.
What was I so pleased with when I was at the Perth? I told you this.
Yes, you did.
Yeah,
You did. You can see the fruits of your labor.
I couldn't get home. First of all, that's Perth. I was driving to Toronto. There's a little shopping lane, I told you.
Yeah.
And I say, gee, this would be a good place.
And you see it over time.
I just didn't talk. I built it.
You're a doer.
Well,
I guess that's the bottom line. You
that's
see
the bottom
something
line.
that needs doing, and you do it.
I saw it, and we did it. And, that's ours. Peter's, we're all shareholders in that. That's the gem of the park class.
Well, it takes inner strength to be able to see something and act on it. If you feel that you've got a role to play. You see where there's a hole, like people on the street hungry, and starting a food bank, or putting together what you did to make sure the Children's Hospital was put up, or the Jewish National Fund, and the work you did for them.
Now that you mention it, I thoroughly agree.
You've done a lot. You've done a lot, and I think that's an example for anyone. I think so many people they'll complain, but they won't go that extra step to do something about it.
Certainly the Children's Hospital. It wasn't for me.
No. And it's individuals taking responsibility on themselves and taking a step. And once they do, quite often others will follow. And the children, I think they're a good legacy, because all the children have moved forward.
Well, the Children's Hospital, I guess, and the food bank are two positive analogies.
Yeah.
The Children's Hospital is a great, big, beautiful structure, getting bigger all the time.
Well, you're reading about success.
We couldn't do without it and not saying about it.
Well, I was going to say you're reading about success stories in the newspaper and the Citizen all the time, about how children's lives have been saved. We went to CHIO when the research was being done there. But no, I think that everything that's been done, and you're still active. You're still doing things. You still go to work every day.
Absolutely.
And you're 86.
If I saw it.
You're 86. Close, that's right.
And me, I was 86, so I'll be 87
next year. Yeah.
In 13 years, I'll be 100.
It's countdown time.
Yeah, that's right.
When you're young, it's only 3 years till I'm 10, and or 5 years till I can drink. And now it's 13 years till you're 100. You looking forward to that?
No, I like the present. I resent the time passing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I enjoy what I'm doing. I have a wonderful family. Everything that is part of the rewards of what you're trying to do.
Well, I know that whenever the family's all together, you like to say, it's so nice to have, what is it you always say? All the chickens under the roofs?
There's no Jewish expression for it. That's like a majority of everyone is. It's a mitzvah anyway. Blessing.
Yeah. And everybody's happy and well.
And it's funny, because Barbara has no interest in Jewish things at all. I guess I'll tell you, it simply does not give her any thrill or like the Jewish ladies that say, eat all this kind of stuff. That's not her.
But she would never deny her Jewishness.
Yes.
She would never deny her Jewishness.
No.
No.
But, it's not the precious thing that, in other words, she got along quite well without it, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And,
But the children, they were all bar mitzvahed and bat mitzvahed, and
yeah.
they all had their Jewish education.
The whole picture of the Jewish religion going back 100 years, it's steadily diminishing in strength, in numbers, intermarriage coming along, you know. And so the Jews as a community in Canada, United States, are
It's a challenge.
it's a definite road that's going to disappear in another 100 years or something like that.
You think
You
it'll
see-
disappear?
Oh yeah, because my grandfather was a rabbi. My father was a rabbi's son. He started a weekend on the religious stuff. I'm a grandson. I like being Jewish, but I don't go to synagogue every Friday night and Saturday mornings and put on a prayer shawl and get after God to make sure the God's on the right track. You know, these very strong religious views, but they're diminishing. You see, first of all, it doesn't fly anymore. Secondly, they're intermarried. You know what I mean? And thirdly, they say that, you know, they see these Orthodox Jews, they're not a goddamn bit happier than a Jew that never been in synagogue in his life.
And yet, for all you've done for others, one might say that you've lived every bit. For all you've done for others, one might say that you lived every bit the life
In other words,
a
that
Jewish
my background
person.
made me do
Who
the
you are.
things, the charitable things. Is that what you mean?
Yes, I think that in terms of the giving,
Yeah.
your giving nature, and what you've done for others in your life, that's very Jewish.
I think I get a lot of that. You would have no idea. Like my mother, you know, she wears her hair. If there ever was a gentle, kind, brilliant woman, that's her. She was honestly, she was an incredible woman. Now you see, that's what that was done
The
by
painting,
her. But
yes.
you've seen some of her paintings.
Yes,
Now
yes.
her paintings hung in the Royal Gallery, and she's given them around to her children and so forth. But she had all this talent, and yet she was 100% modest. She didn't think she was a big shot or a thing, you know. And as a human being, my mother was the greatest human being that I have ever met. I told her, during the terrible depression, she set up a place, a warehouse, and she solicited food and mostly clothing. In every way they could, she started. And hundreds of Jewish families depend on that setup that she had to eat, and even some place to sleep. That was it. You can't imagine how bad the depression. Some people, you know, just took it. My mother took the opportunity to feed needy people, and did she ever do a job?
And you, how old would you have been?
Well, she
when you
would
saw
have been
that?
in her 40s.
Yeah, but how old were you?
I'm sorry?
How old were you? Do you think?
Well, we were kids,
Yeah,
10, 11, 12.
yeah. So you were impressionable. You saw all of this,
Oh, yeah,
and
we
it
saw
had
all
its
this.
impact on you.
Remember, you know, when Jack and I got our car license at 16, my mother couldn't drive. So either of us would take him down to this meeting and that meeting, sit and wait for her. Everything was to raise food and money for the poor.
And you continued that work.
Right?
You continued
Well,
that
maybe
work.
I had heard a bit of it, but I can't tell you the character of my mother. I know she's brought up in a convent.
And a single mother, and a single parent.
Yes.
Her mother was a single parent.
Yeah. And I must say that whatever good items I have, I must owe them to my mother, because she was, honestly, I can't exaggerate what a wonderful human being she was.
Well, I think it's...
She'd go to a concert, and the music was sad.
She was an artist.
Eh?
She was an artist.
Yeah.
And
and she, as I told you, she went to this convent, brought up in a convent, and that was a big deal for Jewish kids.
Yeah.
And even now, until she died, on Christmas night or whatever it is, there's a special service, midnight mass.
She'd go to, yeah. Well, how did your grandfather feel about her marrying your father? Was there any issue there because she'd gone to Catholic school?
Think so. I
No,
think
it was no big deal.
My grandfather was so immersed. The whole world was no interest to him.
Yeah.
He was circumcising boys and having funeral services and killing chickens. I told you about killing chickens. Oh, gee, I tell you, I should read a short story about that. Jack and I, 6 or 7 years old, cold winter's night, dark, in the backyard of his house. We would come in with the chickens, and it was a very big tub. And he'd take the chicken, pull the hell back, pull the feathers up on a special knife, zip, let it spurt in the air, and then she'd hang the chicken in this tank, and the wings would be fluttering, and here's her 7 or 8 years old, dark, cold, blood, and I said, I'll never forget those days. It's crazy.
It's so graphic. I mean, it's you've told me this story, but every time you tell it, it's just a great story, because you can almost be that age and see it happening and the impact that would have. But anyway, that's great. If you, I guess this is the last question. If you were going, to give some advice, or if you were going to give advice or thought to any person who's listening to this in the future, whether it was a grandson or whether it was a young person listening to this tape, is there anything you'd like to say to them?
It's a big question.
This is not a soup question.
You see, there's so much of this that's just inherited, whether they like it or not. Like, I haven't inherited my business. I probably was from my father or my mother, with somebody. And there's some of these things you can't sort of go into it. Like the real estate business. You can't just say, gee, that's a good business, and we're going to do the real estate business. You have to have the facility to identify this will work, and that will, and this price is crazy, and this apartment house, we've got to get a piece of that, and you have all these decisions to make. And I think that's an inherited aspect. I don't think you can learn to be a smart man. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
You have to, recognize what you do have.
Yeah, it's just, I think your daily decisions are based. That wonderful expression, I am a part of all that I have been.
Yes.
So, all this, I've been sitting here, as a young boy, I watched my father in business and my uncles, everything, and it all leaves you with a kind of a residual ability to know what is good and what is bad and what is worth and what isn't worth. And I think if you're lucky, as I fortunately have been, to I've been successful. Lemark Farms now is a $25 million operation. Started from nothing.
You've got a wonderful family.
A wonderful family, that's right.
You're about to be a great grandfather.
That's right. That's cute.
So, to know who you are.
That Jenny really turned out to be a great kid, you know.
Yeah. Your oldest granddaughter.
Eh?
Your oldest granddaughter.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of good stuff in it.
Yeah. And someday,
What's that?
and one day,
Yeah.
her son or daughter will.
Yeah, it's
Hear
come along
this.
pretty quickly.
That's right. That's
I'll be a
right.
great grandfather.
Well, I want to thank you. What? I want to thank you very much for this interview.
Kathy, you never have to thank me. I thank you for being my daughter.
Oh, that's very
I've
kind.
always loved you. You have never, I hope, heard me say anything or do anything that upsets you. Have I?
No.
I think
I am actually my own input. It's funny because when I first met you and all of the time since, when I've known you in the family, I've always thought of you as a teddy bear. I mean, figuratively. And over the years, I would get outside input, saying it would. I guess effectively it was, you don't mess with this guy. And I could not figure the two. The two were so different.
Contradictions.
I couldn't see both in the same person. And I think I've only seen you angry once.
Me angry?
And it was with poor Jerry. The
Jerry
janitor.
Johnson.
Over the, I don't know, something about the garbage out back, and it was raining, and you had your umbrella up. And I was at a distance, and I could see you were really angry. And then I could see, this guy. But you can't be a teddy bear in business. I mean, you have to be tough.
You see, Jerry is the caretaker of the business.
Yes.
We have brass on our front doors.
Mm-hmm.
Brass. I insist that brass be polished every day, because that's the first impression you get of it, isn't it? Now, you know. And when Jerry doesn't do that, that's when I blow my top. But because I feel that that Belle Muse, we get so many compliments on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot, you know. That's the second phase. Originally, it was just a one-story building, and then we built the tower. And it took us time to fill the tenants. Mm-hmm. Right now, we have no office vacancies left, and then there's the retail stores. We have one retail store that's empty.
Excellent. And you don't get that being a pussycat.
Oh, it takes time.
You've got to be tough.
And
actually, I remember one other time. You were just about to leave on vacation.
Yeah.
And Marlene, secretary you've had for so
39
many years, 39 years.
years.
Her last comment was, now, is there anyone else you'd like to hang up on or yell at before you leave? But I have never been on the receiving end of that. And I'm glad I haven't. No, I'm just teasing you. Anyway, on the receiving end of your bad temper.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Anyway, I think we'll end it here. But thank you again. And we'll talk some more.
Kathy, if you